gotten that shared everywhere. Hello to anyone who might be listening in. If you're new, I am looking for microfossils underneath my microscope. They are around 80 million years old. They could technically be anywhere from 84 to 78.5 million years old, but we say around 80. And I'm anticipating, if there's anything in here, that it will mostly be fish teeth and fish scales. If you look at the right side of my screen over here, you'll see examples of 3 teeth that I found in these sediments, and then 1 fish scale up there. So really, really small stuff. The bag of rocks that I'm working through right now is definitely not microsediment. It's all rather large and not broken up. So I'm not anticipating there being anything in this particular batch. So we're going to work quickly to go through that and then move on to some more productive material. And I'm going to put on some music, so give me 1 second while I get a copyright strike on my account. There we go. So as per usual, if anyone has any questions on what I'm doing, or the Menefee in general, or anything you want to ask about paleontology or biology or climate or any or all of the above, feel free to leave it in the chat and I'll see it and get back to you. So every week when I start another one of these streams, I always put a link to the channel on LinkedIn just for fun. I've never gotten anything even approaching a job offer through LinkedIn, but I still put stuff there on occasion. And every time you go to write a post, it says, try out our AI feature. And it's just really demoralizing as someone who mostly does science writing to have a website about finding jobs think that I need a quote-unquote artificial intelligence to do that for me. And I've written an article, and it's about a year old now, so it might be worth going back and doing an update that more or less outlines why something like ChatGPT cannot do real science writing. It doesn't understand what it's talking about. It's just predictive text. And if you're relying on it to get accurate scientific information, you're going to fall. You're going to get whatever kind of answer you would have gotten just by Googling. You're going to get that through ChatGPT at best. And anything more specific than that, and it's just going to, frankly, make up information or give you something that's plausible but may not have any actual basis in research. The particular example of this that I like coming back to, because my published research to date, the majority of it is on the fossil crocodilians from the Menefee Formation. So these are 80 million year old animals, and they include a critter called Deinosuchus, which is one of the largest crocodilians. We call them crocodilomorphs. One of the largest of all time. And we find it in our field sections out in the Menefee Formation, which is really cool. And it's one of the few animals, actually, besides the turtles, that can be found in areas outside of the Menefee Formation. So all of the dinosaurs that have been found there seem to be unique to this place and time, whereas Deinosuchus can be found throughout a pretty large portion of North America during about a 6 to 8 million year stretch of the Cretaceous. They stick around for a really long time, and they are pretty widely distributed here on the continent. So Deinosuchus is a well-known animal, and accordingly, there was someone who had posted online. Let me see if I can auto-expose. Who had asked some details to ChatGPT about Deinosuchus, and it was asking about a body length estimate, which is one of the more kind of popular questions people tend to have about extinct animals. They want to know how big was it, what diet was it, that kind of thing. And those are actually some of the absolute hardest questions to answer honestly and factually. But because ChatGPT doesn't know what it's talking about, it just knows how to string words together in plausible arrangements. Had responded, it first of all spat out a number, a length estimate for Deinosuchus hatcherii, specifically the species Deinosuchus hatcherii. It spat out a length estimate and said that, it's difficult to tell how large an extinct animal is if you don't have a complete skeleton, which is true. Even if you do have a complete skeleton, you're going to be facing kind of a difficult, it still takes a lot of expertise to be able to make the call of how the skeleton is articulated. Even if you have all the bones, if they weren't in life position when you found them, you have to put them together into life position, and how you reconstruct that can have pretty extreme consequences for how long an animal is. And you also have to consider that bones don't just rub up next to each other in the skeleton. You have cartilage, and you have joints, and you have other soft tissues that get in between the bones. So how much cushioning you decide to put in between the bones can also have pretty huge effects. And not that I anticipated that it would, but ChatGPT didn't say anything about that. So, if you're going into, if you take the assumption, if you take the marketing of these quote unquote AI tools at their word, something that should be a superhuman intelligence, right, is not even scratching the surface to the degree of nuance that asking an actual paleontologist who actually does this stuff. And I'm sorry, but that's how you're going to get accurate information. And unfortunately, it seems pretty rare that those who have questions about this stuff actually reach out to subject matter experts. And instead they're relying on, just people on the internet and Wikipedia, which is, has its significant drawbacks. But anyway, even beyond, if you have pretty lofty expectations for what a quote-unquote artificial intelligence can do, you might be disappointed to hear that it doesn't include nearly as much nuance as one could in a conversation like this. But more importantly to me, it got some pretty important factual information wrong. So it spits out a number, and it says that this number was derived from body length estimates using the teeth and skull bones of Deinosuchus hatcherii. And that sounds like a plausible answer, I think, unless you happen to be someone who has spent a lot of time specifically researching how to estimate the body size of extinct crocodilians, and that's exactly what I do. And so the problem with first of all, you cannot use teeth as a body length estimate for reptiles, for the very simple reason that teeth regrow throughout the life of a reptile. They will have large teeth and small teeth proportional at all life stages. So you can't use a small tooth and say this one's from a baby, and a large tooth and say it's from an elder, when they could both, in fact, be from the same individual. And there is no such thing, because the teeth vary so much in size and shape and proportion throughout the mouth of a crocodile. It's kind of stereotyped that only mammals have a lot of variety in the shape of the teeth. It's actually not true. Reptiles can have some pretty significant differences, and if you look in the mouth of an alligator, you can verify for yourself that their teeth actually change a fair amount in shape and proportion throughout the mouth. So, first of all, you cannot use teeth to estimate body size. So that's one factual error. And then the other assertion that ChatGPT was using, or that the research it was drawing from had derived this measurement from skull material, is absolutely not factual, because there are no skulls known from Deinosuchus aturi. This is a species that is only known from a singular skeleton, which included vertebrae and some teeth, yes, and osteoderms, but no skull material. Now, having a skull does still not necessarily mean you can make an accurate body length estimate, because some animals, certain crocs have much longer snouts than others. Deinosuchus famously was often depicted as basically being a very large overgrown alligator. And for a long time there was this replica skull, this reconstructed skull, that was on display, I think, in the American Museum for a number of years. That was more or less a scaled up alligator skull. And if you look up Deinosuchus, you can still find reconstructions that are based off of that give it an alligator head. But as it turns out, its skull actually isn't shaped that way at all. It's not triangular like a gator, and it's also not long and skinny like a gharial. It's actually it's longer, but it's also blunt at the end, so it's closer to like a paddleboard, is what I say. It's got a paddleboard shaped face. There's another animal that has a similar shape that comes from the Miocene of South America, and the authors who researched that particular croc call that a duckbill sort of croc skull shape. I'm not a big fan of that, so I probably will not be reusing that analogy for Deinosuchus, but the point stands that, again, there's a pretty decent amount of variety in the shapes and proportions of croc skulls, and that means that since all of these body length estimates are using modern alligator, almost exclusively modern alligator or Crocodilus porosus, to make those estimates, if your head proportion is different in an extinct animal, it's going to give either an overestimate for body length or an underestimate. If the skull is longer than alligators or crocodiles, it's going to be an overestimate, and if it's shorter, it'll be an underestimate. So the point of the story is, I'm getting really tired of seeing ads for AI services everywhere I go. It's on TV, it's on my phone, it's on podcasts, and it's obviously irritating as someone who does science writing and, audio production sometimes, and All these kinds of things that companies right now are trying very aggressively to replace, and they're even selling it to you, right? Some might say that, there's room in the industry, the quote-unquote industry that I work in, science education. There's room for companies that will just utilize a program like ChatGPT and just have it spit out content, and then maybe have one or two consultants around to fact check to make sure that what ChatGPT is saying is correct. And I'm getting close to having published about 160,000 words on my Patreon, on the Parent Teacher Guide to Paleontology. And it took about 2 years to get to that point. Definitely a lot of effort and a lot of really careful research. If I were to try to replicate that, if I were to try to generate 160,000 words worth of content, you would get to that point much, much faster. It can generate a huge volume of text very quickly. But the difference is that when you write stuff organically, I'm going to the research publications, reading them, taking notes, and then using that information to make my own writing. And when you're just ramming it all into a program, having it spit out tens of thousands of words, and then fact-checking, frankly, I think that is a much bigger hassle. It means that you're chasing down what could be completely hallucinated information, and you could be combing through reference after reference after reference to try to find what piece of information is it citing. And because this is not, in fact, an artificial intelligence, it is not sapient, it is not creative, and it can't cite its own sources. These models were created by scraping information from the wider internet. So any question that you're asking it is going to be answered basically in it's regurgitated information from like Quora and Reddit and Twitter. So, frankly, it would be a huge waste of time, first of all, to generate tens to, over 100,000 words of unoriginal work. That's not what people support me for. They want to be supporting an actual researcher doing actual research, not I'm putting stuff into ChatGPT and then fact-checking what someone else's program thinks. So that's not what people support me for. It's not effective. It would be a huge time expenditure just to make sure that what it's saying is even factual, let alone editing for coherence or, focus any amount of clarity on some kind of broader point that you might want to make that you can try to get a prompt system like ChatGPT to plug into, but you're not always going to be satisfied with the results. So then you're signing yourself up for after the fact checking and all different kinds of editing versus just doing your own work, reading the original research, coming to your own conclusions. Hey, that's part of what being a real researcher is. So if you're someone who wants to be in paleontology and you're using ChatGPT, I would suggest you knock that shit off as soon as possible. Because you're cheating yourself out of doing your own research and coming to your own conclusions, building those skills that you are going to need. ChatGPT is never going to generate original content. It's never going to generate the kind of insights that you're going to need in order to generate original views. It's simply not possible. It cannot create anything new. It's just infinitely remixing stuff that it's seen and heard. in fact, the idea of having a fact check ChatGPT is such a pain that I have, it's been about a year since I've done anything kind of doing that sort of, let's see what it says, and then I'll edit and I'll critique and I'll fact check it. Doing that was such a pain that I haven't bothered doing it in a year. I suppose I was hoping beyond hope that maybe it would have disappeared by now and that the obvious drawbacks would have become obvious enough. But apparently not so. It may be time for me to, maybe not an article this time, maybe make a video kind of outlining it. But again, the amount of time it takes to fact check something that can spit out hundreds of words in a session is just exhausting. It's, it may be informative in the end, but I have felt like there's better use of my time. And while we were talking about that, I just finished up all the sediment in this wonky little bag, so I'm gonna pack this back up and we're gonna move on to another batch. It might be good for engagement if I can try to get people who run AI scam companies on LinkedIn, if I can bait them into arguing with me. So unfortunately, that's how you get engagement. That's how you get eyeballs on your work. We're going to move to a really tiny bag full of some really, really small sediment. So I'm probably going to have to readjust my microscope again. Aha. Okay, that's what I like to see. I literally just set this down and I can already see a little tooth in there. Here we go. Hello. Wonderful. That is much smaller than the teeth that you see on the right there. This is a really itty bitty one. Very nice. Okay, take a quick picture. leave that there for a second while I get a vial to put this in. Okay. Okay. Into the vial you go. Sweet. That's a good sign. That's a sign that we're gonna have some stuff to actually look at in this batch. Let's give it a shuffle and keep looking. Okay. So it looks like it was just that one for this spoonful. So let's swap that out with another. So all the tiny amber colored inclusions you see here are actually fossilized tree sap. That is real amber. And we've taken a pretty significant volume of this amber and sent it to some experts to examine. So I'm not going to bother trying to pick out all these tiny little pieces, but there they are. This is a pretty small sample, so I actually should be able to finish it off before the end of our session today. That'll be cool. Okay, so it looks like the rest of the sample was clean. Not seeing any more material in it, so I'm going to move this. And then to wrap up, I'm going to bring the tooth that I found back on, and we're going to take some pictures with a scale. And then that'll be it. Okay, well that's going to go ahead and do it for this stream. I will see you guys again next week at the same time, 4 p.m. Arizona through 5, and we're going to continue looking at sediment from the Menefee Formation.